I will call the Pittsylvania County Board of Supervisors adjourned meeting to order on Tuesday, November the 15th, 2016, General District Courtroom, 11 Bank Street, Chatham. At this time, we'll have the roll, Mr. Mundy.
Mr. Barber?
Here.
Mr. Haberman?
Here.
Mr. Blackstock?
Present.
Mr. Davis?
Present.
Mr. Scares?
Here.
Mr. Warren?
Here.
Mr. Bostic?
Present. Thank you, Mr. Mundy. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, we will have a moment of silence. Thank you. We have a Scout Troop 374 with us this evening from St. Luke's Methodist Church. I'm going to ask the leaders and the troop to come forward up front and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. And ladies and gentlemen, I would ask all of you to stand and join us in the pledge. Okay, I would like for everyone to turn and face the flag, and you all just take it away and lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ladies and gentlemen, you may be seated. The troop, just hold fast for a little bit. The leaders, would you just introduce the adults, if you so will?
Okay, I'm Bill Oswald. I'm actually the Senior District Director for the Dan River District of Scouts, which is Charlotte County, Pittsylvania County, Halifax County, Danville City, and also Franklin, Henry, and Patrick County.
My name's John Atkins, I'm Scoutmaster of Troop 374.
My name is David Stafford. I'm one of the Assistant Scoutmasters for Troop 374.
Hi, my name is Jacob. I'm a scout from Troop 374. We're here at the courthouse, and we welcome you guys.
Right, very good. Well,
My name is Dylan C., and I am happy to be here.
My name is Hunter Atkins from Troop 374.
My name is Benjamin Stafford. I'm actually not a Boy Scout yet, but I'm still a Weeblo, and I'm from Troop 374.
My name is Lucy Gonzalez. I'm a Boy Scout, and I'm from Troop 374, and I'm glad to be here.
I'm Brett Stone, and I'm from Troop 374.
I'm Christopher Stafford. I'm a Life Scout, and I'm currently an Assistant Senior Patrol Leader for Troop 374.
I'm Bryce Atkins. I'm from Troop 74, and I'm first class, and I'm happy to be here.
I'm Jacob Worthington. I'm a scout from Troop 374.
I'm Chaz Mickens. I'm a Star Scout, and I'm from 374.
Hi, my name is Mason Diaz. I am from Troop 374.
I'm Brian Morris. I'm from Troop 374.
Andrew Pruitt. I'm from Troop 374.
My name is Jacob Motley. I'm the current Senior Patrol Leader of Troop 374.
we thank you all on behalf of the board. Ladies and gentlemen, yes, thank you all. We are at number 5 on the agenda. We need to add an item. Mr. Blackstone?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to add an item concerning recruitment of a county administrator for closed session.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Blackstock, second by Mr. Barber. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. Unanimous. Thank you. Is there a motion to approve? Or will
No, we need-
that be good for the, okay,
Go ahead and do it.
okay, thank you.
I make a motion, we approve the agendas with the addition.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Blackstock and second by Mr. Barber. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. Thank you. We're down to hearing of citizens, but I don't have anyone who signed up. So ladies and gentlemen, is there anyone who would like to speak under the hearing of citizens? If so, you can do so now. Okay, seeing none, we will move on. The consent agenda, is there a motion to approve?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Barber, second by, who was that? Mr. Warren. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. Unanimous. We have 4 public hearings, 4 rezoning cases this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, pursuant to Article 5, Division 6 of the Pittsylvania County Zoning Ordinance, we, the Board of Supervisors, have been empowered to hear and decide specific zoning issues and zoning map changes in support of said ordinance. In accomplishing this important task, we are responsible for promoting the health, safety, and general welfare of the citizens of Pittsylvania County. We must ensure that all of our decisions and recommendations be directed to these goals and that each be consistent with the environment, the comprehensive plan, and in the best interest of Pittsylvania County, its citizens, and its posterity. Anyone here to speak to the board regarding zoning cases will be limited to 3 minutes. I will open the public hearing for case 1 at 7:07. Mr. Shelton?
Case 1. Can y'all hear me up there right here?
You can do the mic for the recording.
Case 1, R16-027, R&P Country Club LLC, Runkin Pratt. Senior Living Communities has petitioned to rezone a total of 349.83 acres, 6 parcels of land located off State Road 637, Country Club Road in the Stanton River Election District from A1 Agricultural District, R1 Residential Suburban Subdivision District, B2 Business District General, to RPD Residential Plan Unit Development for a senior living community. Once the properties are rezoned to RPD, all uses listed under Section 35-294 are a permitted use. The Planning Commission, with no opposition, recommended granting the petitioner's request. The staff summary is enclosed in the board packet. Mr. Chairman, Administrative Assistant of Runkin Pratt, Jimmy Ayers, is here to represent the senior living communities.
Thank you, Mr. Shelton.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr.
Mr. Chairman, I will be abstaining from participation or voting on this matter due to a financial conflict.
Thank you, Mr. Blackstock. Mr. Ernst, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Shelton. Mr. Chairman, board members, I appreciate the opportunity to be here before you tonight. First off, Mr. and Ms. Rump, Brian and Vicky had an engagement there at Bedford County Planning Commission. They could not be here before you tonight. They sent me here. They were kind of wits end what to do, and so that's where they are, and their apologies are sent for them not being able to be here. Runkin Pratt Senior Living Communities is a full-service community for our seniors. It's funny, back several months ago, I went to work for Runkin Pratt in February, and I received a phone call one day in the office, and it was from Matt Rowe. And when I answered, I told him this is Jimmy Ayers, and he said, by chance, would this be the Jimmy Ayers from Amherst County? And of course, I told him yes. So he expressed the concern that they had here in Pittsylvania County from Ms. Davis and quite a few of the seniors who had created kind of a group on a mission to seek out a senior living community for Pittsylvania County. So we became involved with the citizens here in the county, with you all's county government, having a meeting there in the town of Gretna, and then things just worked out, and Brian and Vicki ended up acquiring the Alta Vista Country Club, which is where we would like to place the senior living community, using the country club and its facilities there as an amenity for the senior living community, but also keep it available to the citizens of Pittsylvania County and the surrounding areas to enjoy and use as well. We've been in business since 1992, started with 19 residents in Evergreen and Appomattox. Now we are a little over 400 residents, employ over 300 folks through the 4 facilities that we have. We provide independent living for seniors, assisted living for seniors, and memory care component as well in our facilities. We strive to let our seniors age in place. And that's what our plan is here for Pittsylvania County, would be to put the care facility there, which would encompass the independent assisted living and memory care, and also do patio-style homes around the perimeter that would provide independent living for those that so desire to give up the upkeep of a home and come somewhere where the maintenance is taken care of. And if, as they age and so desire to stay in the community, they then can transition to the care facility if they so desire. So that's kind of a brief of what we do. And again, we appreciate the opportunity to be here. And Mr. Chairman, I would like to say that it has truly been an honor and a pleasure. I know as board members, a lot of times you listen to quite a bit of criticism, but you seldom get thanked. But I want to thank you all for the staff that I've had the pleasure of working with, from Mr. Shelton to Mr. Rowe, and also the folks from the town of Hurt. They have been great and so accommodating, and could not have been nicer. So for that, I want to say thank you all to each of you all, and I will address any questions that you all may have.
Okay, any questions or comments from the board? Mr. Hageman?
Yes. Actually, I was kind of surprised. Mr. Blackstock abstained from voting. Mr. Blackstock, what may you tell us a little something about that? How come you abstained?
I abstained on advice of our counsel, where our county attorney gave him advice to abstain due to the nature of the conflict of interest laws that have been changed in Richmond. I serve on the board of directors for First National Bank, and Runkin Pratt have a association with the bank, so I've been advised to not participate in the particular vote tonight.
Is there any other reason besides the bank?
Not that I'm aware of.
All right.
I'm excited and happy to have them in the community, and you know, really excited.
Thank you. Mr. Blackstock. Is that it, Mr. Hageman?
Well, basically, I'm sorry, what was your your cooperation with the bank is what I'm getting at.
I'm on the board of directors of the bank.
All right, sir. That's all.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. We have 2 people who have signed up to make comments, so you can have a seat. If we need you for anything to come back, I'll call you. But just, we have I believe Pat Davis. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, board members, thank you so much for allowing me to participate in this tonight. My name is Pat Davis, and I am proudly live in Stanton River District. My husband, Oscar Davis, was diagnosed in 2006 at Duke University Hospital with Alzheimer's. The day that they told him he had Alzheimer's, it didn't faze him, but I said, oh boy, I gotta look for keys, and I gotta answer your questions all day long. I wish it had been that simple. For 5 years, he stayed at home, and then he started getting aggressive and combative, and also wondered. Couldn't keep up with it. Because of the incidents at home, he was hospitalized in 2010. After spending some time in the psych ward for observation, the doctor advised it was no longer safe for him to live at home. He would have to be placed in a lockdown facility which provided around-the-clock care for patients with the same or similar situations. His first placement was in Danville, which was about a mile from the North Carolina line. So that meant it was 54 miles from my house to the facility. So going and coming, that was 108 miles a day. I made this trip 5 to 7 days a week for the first year. His doctor was in Lynchburg, so his appointment days were about every 6 weeks. I traveled from Gretna to Danville to Lynchburg to Danville and back to Gretna. This made a long trip of about 262 miles each time we went to the doctor. I put over 11,000 miles on my car that year. After about a year and a half, we were transferred him to Lynchburg to be closer to his doctor. The facility happened to be the same mileage as going to Danville. That meant another 104 miles every day for a long while. After he was settled and made a successful transition, later I tried to visit at least 5 days a week instead of 7 days a week. Again, this added more and more miles. Cost of gas was high at that time, and so I was spending a lot on gas. It took a toll on not only on our budget, but on my car and on my health. I was on the road for 2 hours each time I went to visit him and come back home. This went on for almost 4 years. We finally moved him to a nursing home in Alta Vista because we had spent over $350,000 for his care, and we had just did not have the money to keep him in a memory care facility. This was his 3rd time moving, which is not one of the worst things that can happen to a memory care patient, is they just get all upset over it. A nursing home is not the answer for Alzheimer's or dementia patients. The staff is not trained to care for this type of patient, and there is no stability. My husband ended up in a room on the surgical rehab wing. His roommate changed every few weeks. Instability like this is one of the worst things these patients can experience. Another important aspect is hydration. They needed to be hydrated every 2 hours. A nursing home is trained to leave a pitcher of water on the nightstand, and if they drink it, it's okay, and if they don't, it's okay. These patients require special guidance and instructions that require more than what a nursing home can provide. They need specialized care in a specialized facility. Because my husband was a wanderer, he would go into other residents' rooms. He did not understand he was in the wrong room, and he would pick up stuff and carry it with him. The non-dementia patient would get irritated and start yelling and get physical. When provoked, an Alzheimer's patient gets combative because they know no difference. A memory care facility has more attentive care because they are trained properly. These patients need this type of care. Oscar was sent to a psych ward at the hospital several times, and the last time they refused to admit him. He was put in handcuffs and taken by uniformed authorities to Catawba Hospital. While there for about a month and a half, his physical and mental health deteriorated rapidly. He was getting up during the night and falling. He was sent to Korean Hospital on 2 different occasions for the falls, and as a result, he had brain damage. The damage had caused his brain to bleed, causing him to have a pocket of blood on the brain. And I am sure that his eye was damaged also. I don't think he could see out of it. I was advised there was...
Ms. Davis,
Sir.
respectfully, I'm going to have to ask you to wrap it up if you can.
Okay. These people, though, need to be in the control unit as such as Runke Pratt, where that they can take care of these people under the right circumstances, whether they are, somebody is caring for them daily and seeing to their needs. My husband was buried 1 year ago today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Davis, for sharing that information. We have Mr. Gary Poindexter.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman
Good
and
evening.
members of the board. Thank you for having us here tonight, and thank you, Mr. Ayers, for your kind words, Ms. Davis for sharing your story. Speaking on behalf of the town of Hurt and all of my constituents, all of my council and staff, I'm here to keep this short tonight and just simply ask you for your full favor upon the rezoning of this property and this project. We would be hard pressed to find a more appropriate and a more distinctive asset to add to our community, especially in terms of a healthcare facility. As I mentioned before, Runkin Pratt are the gold standard in that industry, at least in this part of Virginia. And we are blessed to have the opportunity before us, and we're deeply grateful to them for their willingness to invest in our community. There is more to this project than the standards that we often speak of here, such as jobs and revenue and economic and business growth. All that is great. We're delighted to have it. But even greater than that is what this facility means to the people of Pittsylvania County and all three of its towns and beyond. As I mentioned to the Planning Commission, the population of our country is growing, and it is also aging. And the incidence of dementia-like conditions is on the increase, along with diabetes and other serious medical problems that go with being a senior. The need for this facility is only going to increase as time goes by. So I would consider it an absolute necessity that we embrace these people in this project and that we make them welcome, that we support them in every conceivable way. So tonight, on behalf of everyone in my town and district and beyond, I respectfully ask for your support, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Poindexter. Mr. Ayers, do you have any further comments or anything before I close the public hearing?
No, Mr. Chairman, I don't, unless any of you folks would have any questions.
Okay, I don't think, Mr. Warren? Okay, thank you, sir, very
Thank you,
much.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, at this time, I will close the public hearing for case number 1 at 7:22.
Mr. Chairman, I make the motion that we approve case number R-16-027.
And I will second that. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I would just like to comment and thank Runkin Pratt for their investment in financially in the county and in the area of Hurt, and in particular for servicing a need that we drastically need here. We appreciate you doing that. We know it's a big investment, and we certainly welcome you to the county and appreciate your efforts. I had the pleasure of being there on the first open house, and it was wonderful. And Ms. Davis, thank you very much for your story, because I know that we didn't mention it tonight, but Ms. Davis kind of got this ball rolling initially from her experiences. And Mayor Poindexter, thank you very much for being here tonight and supporting this, and we appreciate all the efforts and think this will be a wonderful thing for Pittsylvania County and certainly for the town of Hurt, and we very much appreciate your investment.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Warren. Any other comments? Mr. Mundy, we're ready to vote.
Mr. Chairman, who seconded that? Who seconded that?
I did.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Mundy?
Mr. Barber?
Yes.
Mr. Hagerman?
Yes.
And Mr. Blackstock confirm you are abstaining?
Abstain?
Mr. Scares?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Warren?
Yes.
Mr. Barksdale?
Yes. Mr. Ayers, the property has been rezoned.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and all of you. We really appreciate those boards to being a part of this great county.
We do too. Thank you, sir. Okay, next we have case 2. I will open the public hearing at 7:24. Mr. Shelton?
Case 2, R-16,
028, Lynn Tucker has petitioned to rezone 1.51 acres located off State Road 809 Columbus Road in the Catalina-Groton election district from R1 Residential Suburban Subdivision District to A1 Agricultural District. Once the property is rezoned to A1, all uses listed under section 35178 are a permitted use. The Planning Commission, with no opposition, recommended granting the petitioner's request. The staff summary is enclosed in the board packet. Mr. Chairman, Lynn Tucker is here to represent the petition.
Thank you, Mr. Shelton. Ms. Tucker, would you come forward? No, is Ms. Tucker, are you here? No, she's not. Okay. Okay, we don't have anyone who signed up to speak to this case, so I will close the public hearing for case number 2 at 7:25.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Hagerman?
Yes, case 2, R-16-028, zoning request from R1 to A1. Ms. Tucker is requesting to rezone her 1.51 acres off Road 809 in the Catalina-Groton district from R1 Residential Suburban Subdivision District to A1 Agriculture District. This property meets the county comprehensive plan for surrounding property. I examined the property on 11/14/16 and request the rezoning to A1 Agriculture.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Hagerman and second by Mr. Barber. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Mundy?
Mr. Barber?
Yes.
Mr. Hagerman?
Yes.
Mr. Blackstock?
Yes.
Mr. Scares?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Warren?
Yes.
Mr. Barksdale?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Mundy. We're at case number 3. I will open the public hearing at 7:27.
Case 3, R-16-029, Joseph Kiss and Deborah Rush, husband and wife, have petitioned to rezone 5.65 acres located on State Road 680 Church Road in the Bannister election district from R1 Residential Suburban Subdivision District to A1 Agricultural District. Once the property is rezoned to A1, all uses listed under section 35178 are a permitted use. The Planning Commission, with no opposition, recommended granting the petitioner's request. The staff summary is enclosed in the board packet. Mr. Chairman, Deborah Rush is here to represent the petition.
Thank you, Mr. Shelton. Ms. Rush, would you come forward? We just make sure we get you on record. Do you have any additional information or comments regarding this case?
No, I don't. I just, the reason that we're moving here from Norfolk, we're building our home in Pittsylvania County, and I'm bringing my horse with me. She's retired. She's always lived her life in boarding barns, and she's retired, and I want to bring her home. So it has to be agriculture so that I can do that. You want to see her picture?
How could we say no? You get the prize. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, no one signed up to speak to this case. We will close the public hearing at 7:29.
Mr. Chairman, in case R-16-029, Mr. and Mrs. Rush requesting to rezone property from R1 to A1, I make a motion that this be approved in the Bannister District.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Blackstock and second by Mr. Barber. Any discussion? It's in my district, and I'm happy to have you and whatever the horse's name is. Okay, Midnight. This request for rezoning is within the constructs of the County's comprehensive plan. Mr. Mundy?
Mr. Barber.
Yes.
Mr. Hagerman.
Yes.
Mr. Blackstock.
Yes.
Mr. Scares.
Yes.
Mr. Davis.
Yes.
Mr. Warren.
Yes.
Mr. Barksdale.
Yes. Ms. Rush, your property has been rezoned. You're welcome. Case number 4, I will open the public hearing at 7:30.
Case 4, R16-030, Timothy and Dawn Cassidy have petitioned to rezone a total of 4.55 acres, 5 parcels of land located on US Highway 360, Old Richmond Road in the Dan River Election District from RC1 Residential Combined Subdivision District to A1 Agricultural District. Once the properties are rezoned to A1, all uses listed under Section 35-178 are a permitted use. The Planning Commission, with no opposition, recommended granting the petitioner's request. The staff summary is enclosed in the board packet. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Cassidy is here to represent the petition.
Thank you, Mr. Shelton. Mr. Cassidy, would you come forward? Mr. Cassidy, do you have any additional information or comments regarding this case?
No, Mr. Chairman, I think you'll see in your packets and had a visit from Mr. Davis. We appreciate he came out and looked at it, but we've got a total of a little over 31 1/3 acres. 21 that's around all these lots is already A1, and we just want to combine everything and make it A1.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
We have no sign-ups for the speak to this case, so I will close the public hearing at 7:31. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir,
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Davis?
I went and looked at this property. He's got a beautiful piece of property, and these lots basically are on the parallel with the road. And he's got several tractors, and he wants to build him a barn or utility building to accommodate them. But he's got a beautiful place, and it's got a fence around it, and it's just gorgeous. And I don't see any problems with it. I believe it fits very beautifully within the comprehensive plan of Pittsylvania County. So, Mr. and Ms. Cassidy, I'm gonna make the motion that we take R-16-030 from RC1 Residential Combined Subdivision District to A1 Agricultural District. I make that motion that we have that done, sir.
Is there a second? We have a motion by Mr. Davis and a second by Mr. Warren. Any further discussion? Mr. Mundy?
Mr. Barber.
Yes.
Mr. Hagerman.
Yes.
Mr. Blackstock.
Yes.
Mr. Scares.
Yes.
Mr. Davis.
Yes.
Mr. Warren.
Yes.
Mr. Barksdale.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Mundy. Mr. Davis, Mr. Cassidy, your property has been rezoned.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's the end of our rezoning cases. We're down to new business, item 7 on the agenda. Mr. Mundy?
Yes, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, staff has talked to you as a board on multiple occasions about the need to make a single port of entry into the courthouse complex. This courtroom, of course, is a part of that project. The goal is that there will be security screening there anytime the constitutional offices located within this complex are open and any of the courts are open. What we did was we partnered with Dewberry. They do A&E work, as you all know. What we had them to do was put together the scope of work for the project. That scope of work was compiled into a bid, an IFB, an invitation for bid. That bid was solicited by the county's purchasing department. 2 contractors submitted bid responses back that were interested in doing the work. The bid opening was on November 2nd at 2 p.m. here in the county administration building. I was present at the bid opening. Once the bids were publicly opened, it was very obvious that something was wrong with the bids because it was a difference of about $80,000 between the 2 bids. When that happens, usually what happens is there's a misunderstanding of the scope of work, and usually something is left out and is not anticipated in the bids that are submitted back. Dewberry, part of the contract administration that they do for the county under this type of work is to evaluate the bids to make sure that we're getting a responsive bid back. These two companies, Quality Construction and Daniel Builders, they do a lot of work for the county. Both of them are very reputable contractors. We don't have any problems with those. So upon examination of the bids, we got to looking at the field notes. The field notes really is in your board package. They're on page, where'd they go? Field notes that the company have, basically what they show is it's like a worksheet. And in that worksheet, they show in there what they estimate to go into the project. Long story short is they left out two important projects, the type of flooring that will be commensurate with the scope of work, and also the security system that goes on the doors to regulate entry in and out of the building. So once that happened and the company realized they failed to put that into the bid, they requested that their bid be withdrawn. And that is, of course, appropriate when that particular thing happens. So, Mr. Chairman, in looking at the bid that was submitted by the other company, which is $269,000 submitted by Daniel Builders, Daniel, they do want to move forward and do the work. The particular estimate that Dewberry gave, their price of $269 is within line of that. It's pretty close to what the staff had estimated on its own as well. So, Mr. Chairman, in a situation like this, there would be two procedural things that the board would need to do. Those motions are outlined on page 16 of your board packet. The first motion, the staff recommends that the board accept the withdrawal of Quality Construction's bid and award the bid in the amount of $269,000 to Daniel Builders, LLC, and authorize the county administrator to execute all necessary documentation. And I'll be happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Thank you, Mr. Mundy. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make the motion that we allow the withdrawal of Quality Construction's bid.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Warren, a second by Mr. Davis. Any discussion?
Actually,
Mr. Hageman, sorry, go ahead.
Actually, I'm very familiar, well, I guess we are all familiar with that, but I certainly think that knowing the circumstances behind it, I would certainly like to make a motion to accept the movements as Mr. Mundy has mentioned.
Yeah, we have a motion already, so I guess, is that your discussion, Mr. Hageman?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any other discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. And it's unanimous. I'll entertain motion number 2.
Mr. Chairman, I make the motion that we award the bid in the amount of $269,000 to Daniel Builders, LLC, and authorize the county administrator to execute all necessary documentation.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Warren and a second by Mr. Blackstock. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor raise your right hand, and it's unanimous. Thank you. Next, we're at item 8 on the agenda. Let me just say one thing before we go any further. Board members, I might be the only one who feel like I need a little bit more time. I didn't go as slowly with everything as I wanted to, but I won't hold it up. But is anyone else feeling that you need more time to look at it?
I'd like to bring it back on the next agenda.
Okay, okay. Do we have a consensus
Make
that
a
way?
motion to table
Okay.
it to-
Mr. Mundy?
I make a motion, we table this to the next agenda.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, Mr. Blackstock, second by Mr. Barber. Discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. Okay, so bring it back again, Mr. Mundy.
Yes, sir.
I'm not looking for anything. It looks really good, but I just want to have some time to, along with the other board members.
It's an important document. And Mr. Chairman, may I just say one thing
right
that may
ahead.
help you in your review? I'd like to commend Ms. Flippin for putting this document together. And just to kind of walk you through what you have and what is still to come from the staff, what you have is, these are fruits for the audience's purposes from the strategic planning session the board did back on October 20th, facilitated by Dr. Walker. The board, what the board did was agree to a vision statement and the elements that you wanted in the vision statement. That is in this draft presentation that you have in your board packet. And also, you as a board, you came up with different focus areas. Those focus areas are depicted, they're color-coded. Ms. Flippin had a very detailed system for determining the colors that went into those. They are public safety, economic development, infrastructure, so forth, right on down the line. And you notice in those, there are goals and objectives under those focus areas. And in that, there may be 1, 2, 3, or 4 goals under each one of those objectives. And what is missing from here would be timelines and who is responsible for getting the work done. What the staff heard you say is you wanted time to be able to digest these and you approve those. You're the governing board. You give the staff direction. That's important for the staff to know what you want done so we can get the work done. Once you approve this document, what we'll do is take that back to the staff, and then the staff will assign realistic timelines to get that done. And then once you approve the document, we get the timelines in there, then you would receive updates. Could be monthly, could be bi-monthly or quarterly, just to keep you updated on the staff's progress to meeting those goals. So I just wanted to let you know the document is not complete, but we want to make sure where you want to go, and then we'll figure out the path to get there.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mundy. Thank Ms. Flippin, too, for the creativity. Okay, item 9, certification of county administrator interviews. Mr. Mundy.
Yes, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3712B, the Pittsylvania County Board of Supervisors held closed meetings at undisclosed locations within the past 15 days for the purpose of interviewing candidates for the position of Pittsylvania County Administrator. So, Mr. Chairman, what we're doing here is just to dot the i's and go the extra mile and just certifying to the public that once those interviews were done as specified per Virginia Code, that's all the board lawfully discussed during those said meetings. And what I'd like to do is read the certification at this time, and then we do a recorded vote.
Okay.
Be it resolved that at a meeting of the Pittsylvania County Board of Supervisors on November 15th, 2016, the board hereby certifies by recorded vote that to the best of each board member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from the open meeting requirements of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act and identified in the motion authorizing the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered in the closed meeting. If any member believes that there was a departure from the requirements of the code, he shall so state prior to the vote, indicating the substance of the departure. The statement shall be recorded in the minutes of the board. Mr. Barber?
Yes.
Mr. Hagerman?
Yes.
Mr. Blackstock?
Yes.
Mr. Scarce?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Warren?
Yes.
And Mr. Barksdale?
Yes,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
thank you. I don't think we missed anything. We're down to board announcements. Mr. Warren, we'll start with your side.
Mr. Chairman, I would just like to once again thank the Boy Scouts for being here tonight and their leaders. You know, it's a pleasure to look out here tonight and see the future leaders of our country and our county, and it looks like we're in good hands, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Warren. Mr.
Yes.
Davis?
Yes, sir, I'd like to reiterate, because I was a Boy Scout many years ago. I remember I had to go snipe hunting. And the only thing I heard that scoutmaster mind giving the sound was a crow call. I never could put that together out there in the middle of the woods with a flashlight and a bag, but, anyway, the birds are real, but we didn't catch any that night. But I do want to thank you guys for what you do. You are the leaders of tomorrow, and I commend you. I'm glad that you guys take an interest, even still today, because a lot of interest is not being, I don't believe, shown as it once was, but I'm thanking you for keeping the fires burning. And I also wanted to thank Miss Davis for her commitment to her husband and watching Alzheimer's take its place, because I watched a precious mother-in-law for 10 years who could never get home, and we had to run her down 2 or 3 times. So I thank her for her commitment, even as the statement says, for better or for worse. So I do appreciate her work, getting Mr. Matt Rowe on board and getting that service to Pittsylvania County. Thank you very much. And
Thank
that's
you,
all,
Mr. Davis.
I have nothing, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman, thank you.
Mr. Blackstock.
Again, obviously I abstained from a vote on the Runkin Pratt case tonight, but I'm excited about them coming to my district and to the northern end of Pittsylvania County. And I too thank Ms. Davis. I've heard her story more than once. It's very heart-wrenching, and we know of a number of cases in our community where other citizens and their spouses have gone through the same thing. In light of the question by Mr. Hagerman, I would point out that every board member has to fill out a financial disclosure twice a year. Mine is on record. I do serve on several boards and committees, which I'm honored to do so. And it's a public document, and it's there for anybody to see that would like to see it.
Thank you, Mr. Blackstock. Mr. Hagerman.
You know, Mr. Blackstock, it seems to be kind of irritated, but you know, simply,
Mr. Hagerman, that's a little bit out of order.
I'm sorry?
We're doing announcements right now.
Well, sir, what am I out of order for?
Well, this is a period for us to share information
Well, that's,
along the realm of announcements and comments.
you say no comments, sir?
Yes, you're welcome to make comments, but if you could not personalize it, it might be a little bit better.
I don't think that I'm personalized. What I was going to say, Mr. Chairman, was simply this: if my comment was insulting to anyone, of course I would take that back if it's bad. But he mentioned my name in his comments. And the only thing, Mr. Monday, is this: I didn't mention anybody's name, period, and I was very careful about that. But if somebody brings it up, then I think that we could at least ask a question about what it was for. And but I'll certainly, if you're telling me to shut up, then
Not at all, Mr. Hagerman. Whatever you'd like to announce, do you have any announcements that, anything that?
well, my announcements is simply this: to the citizens and the board. I just would have wanted more information in that that situation.
Okay.
That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Hagerman. Mr. Barber.
As we celebrated Veterans Day, I'd just like to thank all the veterans of the county and on this board for your service to the country.
Thank you, Mr. Barber. I attended, along with Mr. Davis, we attended the 82nd Conference of the Virginia Association of Counties. I enjoyed the conference, and we had great attendance. I guess the only thing for me that sort of rose to the top, as well as other people who attended, and that is we have to just keep our eyes on Richmond in terms of the budget. It's sounding like there's going to be less money and maybe some unfunded mandates here or there, which is really not anything new, but that seemed to get a lot of attention and a lot of comments. But overall, I enjoyed it. I just want to, Mr. Barber said something that made me think of the Chatham Elementary School had a program for veterans on Veterans Day. I attended that, and it's just truly amazing what third graders, fourth graders, and all the way to fifth graders could do. But some of us from the American Legion Post 47, which is in Chatham, we attended, and it was all we could do as grown men to show our tears, because they really had a wonderful program. And if we have any vets here, that's something to keep in mind for next year, because they do it every year. I was very proud to be there. That's all I have. Mr. Hunt.
I have none, but I just want to wish everybody a safe and healthy and fun Thanksgiving next week, because I know a lot of people will be traveling, and just be careful and be safe.
Thank you, Mr. Hunt. Mr. Mundy?
No, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, we're ready to start the closed session process.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the Pittsylvania County Board of Supervisors is considering entering closed session for 3 specific purposes. The first 2, under Virginia Code 2.2-3711A5, discussion concerning a prospective business or industry, or the expansion of an existing business or industry where no previous announcement has been made of the businesses or industry's interest in locating or expanding its facilities in the community. One is Project Little Light for a project update. The other is project optimization, discussion of a performance agreement. And Mr. Chairman, finally, under Virginia Code 2.2-3711A1, discussion, consideration, or interviews of prospective candidates for employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, discipline, or resignation of specific public officers, appointees, or employees of any public body. Subject matter, county administrator. Purpose, discussion and consideration of a prospective candidate for the upcoming county administrator's vacancy. Is there a motion by the board to enter closed sessions for these 3 purposes?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve.
We have a motion, is a second? We have a motion and a second.
Okay, we'll call the roll now. Mr. Barber?
Yes.
Mr. Hagerman?
Yes.
Mr. Blackstock?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Scarce?
Yes.
Mr. Warren?
Yes.
Mr. Barksdale?
Yes.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may suggest, we'll take the 2 economic development projects first, and we'll ask for Mr. Hunt, Mr. Rowe, and Mr. Sides to accompany myself with the board for those 2 specific matters.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mundy.
Be it resolved that at the meeting of the Pittsylvania County Board of Supervisors on November 15, 2016, the board hereby certifies by recorded vote that to the best of each board member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from the open meeting requirements of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act and identified in the motion authorizing a closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered in the closed meeting. If any member believes that there was a departure from the requirements of the code, he shall so state prior to the vote, indicating the substance of the departure. The statement shall be recorded in the minutes of the board. And just for the public's benefit, the 2 matters the board discussed in this part of the closed session were the 2 economic development projects. Mr. Chairman, I will now call the roll. Mr. Barber?
Yes.
Mr. Hagerman?
Yes.
Mr. Blackstock?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Scarce?
Yes.
Mr. Warren?
Yes.
Mr. Barksdale?
Yes.
And, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to have Matt Rowe make a staff recommendation to the board.
Okay, Mr. Rowe?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, board members. Before you this evening, you have a performance agreement for a project called Optimization. This project is for Intertape Polymer Group, and Intertape Polymer Group has been in the county now for 29 years. They've been a fantastic company in Pittsylvania County, very dedicated, employing many of our citizens, providing for many households in the county. And I can tell you, as far as from working with the Intertape corporate team, from the actual CEO all the way through as far as plant managers and plant staff, it's a very well-run organization. And it's an organization that we in Pennsylvania can and should be proud of, and I know that we really are. They've gotten national awards as far as in energy efficiency, and their commitment to Pittsylvania County is only growing further here tonight. Intertape is pleased to announce with the county that it is planning to do a $22 million expansion and adding new lines to its Pittsylvania County facility. The company considered other states and even other countries as far as for this project. So we're very fortunate and very thankful as far as have Intertape make that commitment to Pennsylvania County. And this commitment will not only as far as retain existing jobs, but also as far as ensure the county's viability into the future and lead to the creation of new jobs as we move forward in Pennsylvania County. So with that being said, you have the performance agreement there before you. And really, as the company has always been, they've been very easy to work with. And really the gist of the performance agreement before you this evening is that Pennsylvania County would agree to do a 3-year, 50% machine and tools tax grant on the new revenue generated from this significant $22 million investment. So that's before the board this evening, and I believe if you have any questions, I'll certainly do my best to answer them. But it's a very exciting time for Pennsylvania County and obviously for Intertape as well.
Are there any comments or questions for Mr. Rowe before we engage the process? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. I would like to thank Mr. Bennett, Vice President of Intertape, as well as Mr. Mike Jones, the Plant Manager of Intertape, for being here tonight. Thank you for your attendance. I appreciate what they've done in my district, the impact they've made, as well as the overall excellence, as Mr. Rose pointed out. So, Mr. Chair, I'm thankful for what they've done and what they will do in the future, because it makes an impact not only on Pittsylvania County, but Danville, Virginia, as well as the surrounding locale. So, Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the local performance agreement with the IPG as provided and authorize the county administrator to execute the agreement and other necessary documents.
We have a motion from Mr. Davis and a second by Mr. Warren. Is there any discussion on the motion? Will this be a hand vote or do we need a roll call?
Roll call, please.
Okay.
Mr. Barber?
Yes.
Mr. Hagerman?
Yes.
Mr. Blackstock?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Scares?
Yes.
Mr. Warren?
Yes.
Mr. Barksdale?
Yes. Thank you. Gentlemen, would you all like to make some comments or remarks? Come forward and we'll meet you halfway.
First of all, Mr. Chairman, we really want to thank you and the board for supporting us. So, are you coming down?
Thank you very much. We appreciate you all very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Go ahead with your comments, but we want to get a photo op.
Thank you all.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman and board, thank you for supporting us over 29 years. I've been there since the beginning. I also want to thank Greg Sides and Matt Rowe for working with us. A number of you have been to the plant, and you're always welcome to come to the plant anytime. I think I've seen Chairman Barksdale there quite a bit,
Yes.
and out on some of our invites. And we just achieved the gold standard. And I wanted to say a little bit about that. That's our Intertape Performance System Gold Standard. And I wanted to thank Mike Jones, our operations manager, and his team for helping improve our cost base and our energy base as we'd already talked about tonight. And also, I just would like to thank all the Intertape employees, and most of those folks are residents of the county and the city, and for making Intertape a great place to work. And if you're welcome to come out anytime and see what we're talking about. So, Mike, would there be anything else we'd like to add?
I just want to thank you all for supporting Intertape. And, as Matt said,
said, these are exciting times for the county and Intertape, and we're looking forward to growing and continuing to create and add jobs.
Just will add that I talked about being there from the beginning. I actually moved back to the county to take the job, and I'll start off as an engineer for Intertape and soon progressed to operations manager there for a long time. So thank you for the job that you provided to me. But also, seems like about every 8 years or so, we're here talking about something big. And I just would like to say that next year when we spend the money, it'll be 30 years in May when we started the plant. And it would be great to be back in 5 years talking about something else big. And, you know, I'll give you the history. We started plant A7. We more than doubled the size of the plant in 1995. And we were here talking about a big project then, and the county jumped in and supported us on that. We put a large distribution center in just up the road in 2006. And, you know, we've done other projects along the way, but the big ones we've come and asked for participation. So this is a big one for us. $22 million is quite a bit of money for us, and it definitely is going to help build a future for us to stay in the county with Intertape. So thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Would you want a formal one?
Yes.
Yeah, no, long time.
Okay, well, a little bit.
Y'all can stick close. It'll be okay, it'll be okay.
Get us all?
I look over here.
Okay.
You want to go first here? I can. Okay, go ahead. One and then two. All right. 1, 2, 3. All right, now look this way. 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Let me get one more, please. Last one, 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I'm doing your plan. Yeah. Thanks for
I'm tired, I'm not retired yet, I'm still working, but I will be back. Thank you, Mr. Bennett.
Not tonight.
That's all.
Be it resolved that at a meeting of the Pittsylvania County Board of Supervisors on November 15, 2016, the board hereby certifies by recorded vote that to the best of each board member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from the open meeting requirements of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act and identified in the motion authorizing the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered in the closed meeting. If any member believes that there was a departure from the requirements of the code, he shall so state prior to the vote, indicating the substance of the departure. The statement shall be recorded in the minutes of the board. I will now call the roll to that effect. Mr. Barber?
Yes.
Mr. Hagerman?
Yes.
Mr. Blackstock?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Scarce?
Yes.
Mr. Warren?
Yes.
Mr. Barksdale?
Yes.
And, Mr. Chairman, I also like to read one other statement. Pursuant to Virginia Code 2.2-3712B, the Pittsylvania County Board of Supervisors will be holding closed meetings at undisclosed locations within the following 15 days for the purpose of interviewing candidates for the position of Pittsylvania County Administrator. And, Mr. Chairman, that concludes the agenda for this evening.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.